Welcome back to the Burke Allen Program. Our number 718-506-1944, 718-506-1944. We would love to hear from you this afternoon. And up next, the author of Giving Voice to Your Cause, Speaking Tips for Nonprofit Professionals. It's Pam Zeman. You can visit her online at PamelaZeman.com. Hello, Pam.
Hello, Burke. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and I've been looking forward to this segment because you come at speaking tips from a whole sort of different, almost holistic approach. You talk about using the four elements of nature and balancing out the power within you to make it easier to speak or speak with less effort and to be somewhat more effective. So let's talk about that. You talk about the four elements. I'm assuming you mean earth, water, fire, and air?
That is correct. And you said the key word, Burke, and that is easy. I am all about how to be more effective, more influential without so much effort. It seems like people either put in too much effort or not enough effort. And my program's about how to, it's like the sweet spot in a tennis racket, hit right in the middle, right with that balance of putting in enough without overdoing it.
Now, how did you get into helping folks speak and making it easier for them to speak? How did you get into that entire world?
Well, maybe how a lot of people get into what they're doing. I had this incredible fear of speaking to groups of people. I mean, you were talking two people. I was terrified. I was so worried about being judged about what I had to say that I just shut down. And so I got into it just to get over my own fear. And then once I did it and I continued to do it, I found that it was really a lot of fun, and I wanted to share that with other people.
And so at this point, when you get up to speak, I would assume your knees no longer knock.
Well, there's always that excitement. Like the first line, there's always a bit of who's in the audience, who am I speaking to? But it's a lot more fun rather than just wanting to get it over with. I really have a good time relating to people now, and I feel like everybody grows when you come together and you really connect.
Pam Zeman is our guest today. Her book is Giving Voice to Your Cause, Speaking Tips for Nonprofit Professionals. And I would assume for anybody who wants to make a difference out there, wants to speak, this would have, applications for the guy who needs to get up and do a few minutes at his local Rotary Club, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or if you're giving a toast at your best friend's wedding. One of the most touching moments I had was with a client when she said, I wish I would have been able to bring a few sentences together that were meaningful at my best friend's wedding, but I choked. So to be able to help people, if you've got a cause or if you're speaking at your friend's wedding or whatever it is, just so that you can express yourself in a meaningful way that you feel good about and that you actually make a difference in the world.
Is it better in a general sense, Pamela, for folks who are not natural speakers or who don't speak regularly, for them to write down what they're going to say before they get up there, or are you better to go without notes and speak from the heart?
It's a combination of those two. You want to have a structure. You want to know the main points you want to cover. But if you're like me in the beginning, I had to memorize every single word in order to, even to get in front of a group of people, I had to memorize every single word, and that became my detriment because I wasn't connected in the moment. I was pre-scripted in my head and not really following where the energy was going. So you want to know your main intention. Why am I speaking to this group? What's in it for them? Why are we even together? And then a couple points you want to cover, but then be able to go with the flow so that you can stay connected.
Our guest is Pamela Zeman. You can visit her online at PamelaZeman.com. The new book is called Giving Voice to Your Cause, and it's full of speaking tips for nonprofit professionals. And we touched on this a few minutes ago, but I wanted to get into it a little bit more. You utilize within your coaching program where you teach folks how to speak these four elements of nature: earth, water, fire, and air. How does that actually come into play when people are learning how to speak?
Well, it gives us a structure to work with. The fire element is about your passion. So how much passion are you expressing when you connect with people? The water element is about stories. Are you able to bring in some personal stories and edit them down so they don't get too long-winded? You know how it is when you're listening to somebody and they go on and on and on. It's too much. But yet you do want to bring in some personal stories for that emotional connection. And that's the water element. The air element is about your thoughts. How do you organize your thoughts? Are you scattered? Do you have a tendency to, like when we're experts, we have so much to share, and it's easy to go from there over to there, and then we can lose the audience because we're just bouncing all over the place. It's, the airhead all over the place. But how can we organize our thoughts? And then the earth element, I mean, what do you think of when you think of earth? Most people think of being grounded. Are you grounded? Some people I've worked with have said, I did this whole presentation and I don't even remember what I said, because there's a tendency to kind of leave the body rather than being grounded. And each one of these elements has an opposite. Like if you're too grounded, that means you're fixed in your ideas and, there's no flexibility. So you want to have that balance point with each one of these elements.
Our guest is all about teaching you how to speak with more clarity, confidence, and conviction. Her name is Pamela Zeman, and you can visit her online at PamelaZeman.com. The book is called Giving Voice to Your Cause. How difficult is it to translate these written instructions on how to speak? You put them in a book, and you can't demonstrate how to speak with clarity or conviction or confidence. You have to write it out. Was that a challenge for you in writing the book?
I really tried to go from the reader's point of view. What can I do right now? So that's why I incorporated 60 tips that they could practice with the cashier. I mean, some of these things, if you incorporate them in your daily life, it becomes much easier when you're giving a speech. Because if you learn all these techniques and then you go to give a speech, guess what? You will forget everything when you're in front of your audience. But if you can practice them like every day, when you're speaking to friends, when you're speaking to people in your everyday life, and you incorporate some of the tips that I have in the book, then it becomes natural when you're giving a presentation in front of a group of people.
It's said that public speaking is the number one most feared thing by people in America and I guess around the world. When you had to give your very first speech, was this the case for you? I mean, were you a sweaty palmed individual who got all flushed? Can you remember the first time you had to get up in front of people?
It was a total basket case. In fact, it took me 2 years to even go to a public speaking group. I would find excuses. I would drive to the place, and then I would say, I couldn't find parking, and I drove home. So it took me 2 years to even get up in front of a group. And then when I did, I was, like I mentioned, I was just terrified, and I had this thing where I felt I had to prepare and get it down perfectly before I opened my mouth. And because of that, I was really disconnected. But it was a way for me to actually get up in front of a group and start speaking in front of a group. And then when I did that, then it was this gradual thing of letting go of the notes and being more connected with the audience. And that's the next step, is that real connection. Because if we're just spouting out information, people can get that from the Internet. They can go watch a video on the Internet. What we're all searching for is that real connection, somebody who stands up and speaks, and they're connected to us as they're speaking. Speaker and author Pam Zeman is our guest. Her book is called Giving Voice to Your Cause.